This country has never taken part in Eurovision, yet it has won the contest once and came second after Celine Dion. This country isn't on the United Nations list of sovereign states, yet it has hosted Eurovision once and might be about to do it again. I am of course talking about Scotland, situated in the North Atlantic and bordering England to its south. Welcome everyone, my name is Rigel, and today I will be talking about Scotland and its role in the Eurovision Song Contest. Scotland currently constitutes part of the United Kingdom and has impacted the Eurovision Song Contest profoundly even without being a sovereign state. In this video, we'll be taking a look at what Scotland has done in Eurovision in the past, what it's doing in the near future, and what it might do years down the line. But before I dive into Scotland's role in the Eurovision Song Contest, I just want to say thank you for watching. Now, when you think of Scotland in Eurovision, the first thing that comes to most people's minds would most likely be Eurovision 1972, which was hosted in Edinburgh, the capital of Scotland, after Monaco won in 1971. But of course Monaco is a tiny principality and doesn't have the capacity to host, so the UK, which came second in 1971, swept in to host the contest in the capital of Scotland. Now, even though the UK usually sends singers from England to Eurovision, including their most recent representative Sam Ryder, who is actually from Essex, there have been British entries with Scottish singers, which include 1966, 1969 with the very iconic Boom Bang Bang by Lulu, which made up one of the four countries in the four-way winning tie, 1972, which means that yes, the host entry in Edinburgh featured a Scottish singer in it, 1987, and finally 1988, which was Scott Fitzgerald, who represented the UK and got just 1 point less than the Celine Dion, who of course was representing Switzerland at the time. There have also been UK entries co-written by Scots. In 1967, which actually won the contest, 1968, and most recently 2017, which was Never Give Up On You by Lucy Jones. Scots have also been involved in entries of other countries for many decades now. This includes Luxembourg 1975, which was actually the same songwriter as UK 1968, France 1996, which was sung in the Breton language but included a singer from Scotland, Azerbaijan 2013, Russia 2014 and 2016, yes, Sergei Lazarev, Finland 2018, which was Monsters by Sarah Alto, which was actually co-written by the son of Scott Fitzgerald, and Greece 2019, which was Better Love by Katarine Duska. I got this from The Scotsman, which is a rather opinionated news outlet in Scotland, but for factual stuff like this, it's fine. This means that the last time an actual Scot sang an entry for the UK was in 1988, and that's more than 30 years ago. And obviously no songs have been sung in the Scots language or Gaelic, or Scottish Gaelic as it's referred to abroad. So what's happening now? Well, now, after the announcement of the UK as the host country of Eurovision 2023, Glasgow has become the big favorite to host the contest. And considering the impending independence referendum to be held in October of 2023, the BBC may choose to host in Glasgow as a kind of last-ditch effort to keep unity of the United Kingdom, or at least placate the Scots for a little bit. But even beyond the politics, there is still a lot of appeal to host Eurovision in Scotland's largest city. First off, the Oval Hydro Arena is quite large, not the biggest in the UK, but still very well placed to host major musical events, and also the exterior of the arena was featured in the Eurovision movie. The arena itself wasn't actually featured, the movie was set in the fictional arena in Edinburgh, weirdly enough. I haven't watched the movie, so I don't know what it's about. Also, someone noticed that the schedule of the arena had been cleared for April and May of 2023, even before the UK was officially announced as the Eurovision 2023 host country. The BBC Scotland offices are also close by, just opposite the river, so transportation of personnel is less of an issue, although it should be noted that BBC Scotland doesn't answer directly to BBC Eurovision, which is based in Salford in Greater Manchester. There are also huge spaces surrounding the arena for constructing a press center and other amenities. The arena itself is also always in the top 10 busiest arenas by ticket sales in the world, peaking at number 2 in 2018. So again, they know how to handle big musical events. Finally, Glasgow has 2 international airports, Glasgow Airport and Glasgow Prestwick Airport, which can more than fulfill the EBU requirements for international connectivity, and it's easy to reach Glasgow from pretty much anywhere in Europe, from Amsterdam to Warsaw. No, seriously, I saw those 2 cities on the flight booking section of the Glasgow Airport website. So that's why Glasgow is rather deservedly the overwhelming favorite to host the upcoming Eurovision Song Contest. Though we do have to consider the political dimension. There are 2 notable figures advocating for Glasgow to host Eurovision 2023. The first one is Lulu, who you may remember got the 4-way winning tie for the UK in 1969. She's actually from Glasgow and said recently that the people of Glasgow are, quote, music mad. The second notable figure is Nicola Sturgeon, who's also from Glasgow, and she is the First Minister of Scotland and the leader of the Scottish National Party. She tweeted in mid-June that she can, quote, think of a perfect venue on the banks of the River Clyde, and ScotGov is happy to discuss with BBC, Glasgow Council, EBU, and others. Now, when you hear that second part, you might find it kind of weird, right? The SNP wants Scotland out of the UK, so why would Sturgeon also want the UK to host Eurovision in Scotland? Well, I think the answer is less political and more economical. You have to consider that Eurovision, in addition to bringing money to the broadcaster, also brings huge amounts of revenue to the host city. And when/if Scotland secedes from the UK, that money is Scottish, not British. Plus, the cost of living crisis is rendering many businesses financially struggling in all parts of the UK, including Scotland, so any help is appreciated. If Glasgow hosts Eurovision, there will be a lot of tourists/Eurofans spending money at local businesses, such as restaurants, pubs, hotels, and so on. This has the direct effect of boosting the Scottish economy, so I think Sturgeon advocating for Glasgow to host Eurovision 2023 is sensible, actually, but do let me know what you think. And like I said in my Afterthoughts video, if it's in Scotland, it's probably gonna be Glasgow. I don't think Aberdeen has a chance, really. Just earlier today, I saw a video from a Scottish Eurofan who thought Aberdeen is a terrible place, and I don't think Edinburgh has the facilities, or they don't care that much, plus they already hosted before. And if a location in England, say Manchester or Liverpool, is chosen instead, it creates a free political talking point that England doesn't care about Scotland. And even if Glasgow is chosen, politicians can talk about how the hosts are likely to be English and not Scottish, except Graham Norton, who is actually Irish, and liken the event to COP26, during which Glasgow was plastered with Union Jacks. Plus, Glasgow doesn't feel quintessential British. It actually feels more like the cultural capital of Scotland. Like, for example, Limmy, who you might know as the Steel and Feathers guy, he comes from Glasgow. Eurovision 2023 in Glasgow could actually shore up Scottish independence support from overseas, because visitors would understand its difference from England. Yes, I am politically biased. I thought I made this much clear on Twitter, but of course you can argue it one way or the other. I may also be reading into a song contest way too much, but who knows. Either way, according to a BBC press release, the end of the bidding period and hence host city announcement is expected sometime in autumn, which I would interpret as September, so let's see what happens. So what lies ahead for the future of Scotland in Eurovision? Disclaimer, a lot of this is speculation, so don't take it too seriously. Now, let's assume Scottish independence has been achieved, and Scotland is the newest member of the United Nations. So, how would they approach Eurovision? Of course, any country that wants to participate in Eurovision would need a broadcaster, which is something that Liechtenstein had to learn the hard way. But of course, for a country the size of Scotland, they'd of course need a BBC replacement anyway, so what would their national broadcaster look like? Back in 2013 and 2014, in the run-up to the 2014 independence referendum, the SNP government, which I have to remind you is the Scottish National Party, released a series of publications arguing in favor of and answering some common questions to be had about Scottish independence. Obviously, the scope of the questions were not wide enough, but that's not relevant here. What is relevant here is the discussion on a national broadcaster for Scotland. Now, these publications were called white papers because they were printed on paper and the paper was white. If we follow these white papers, the BBC replacement will be / would have been called SBS, which stands for Scottish Broadcasting Service, not to be confused with the Australian SBS, which is Special Broadcasting Service. I feel like it's kind of weird for the Australian broadcaster to not have Australian or Australia in the name, but I digress. Back to the Scottish Broadcasting Service though, we have a direct quote from one of the white papers, specifically clause 474, and I quote, "Would the Scottish Broadcasting Service SBS join the European Broadcasting Union, EBU? Yes. The SBS would seek membership of the EBU and would be an active and constructive partner in the organization. As part of this participation, we would envisage the SBS engaging with some of the EBU competitions, including Scottish entries at the Eurovision Song Contest." So yeah, this theoretical SBS would most definitely do Eurovision. Though of course it remains to be seen whether the SNP has any other plans for the naming of the new national broadcaster in upcoming white papers, because if you didn't know, there's already a campaign for a second independence referendum. As of recording this, 2 white papers have already been released, I believe, and more will come after the summer recess of the Scottish Parliament. But I feel like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I think that SBS is perfectly fine. Speaking of the EBU though, the application to join the EBU should be fairly straightforward. The whole country is in the European Broadcasting Area, and getting into the International Telecommunication Union is so trivial that it's not ever mentioned on most broadcasters' Wikipedia articles. The EBU had this to say on any applications, quote, "The length of the admission process depends on the schedule of the body's meetings as well as the completeness of the application documentation," end quote. Which is a pretty diplomatic answer, but I reckon EBU accession should be pretty easy and quick compared to, say, Kosovo trying to do it. I do wonder how the Scottish SBS would be differentiated from the Australian one, or maybe the Scottish National Broadcaster would just have to take up a new name and or acronym, though the Scottish SBS would likely be a full member as opposed to the associate Australian SBS. Because I know that the Slovak and Slovene EBU broadcasters technically have the same acronym, RTVS, but Slovenia has had to write theirs as RTV Slow, so I do wonder whether conflicting acronyms are allowed, and if not, who would have to change it? It's complicated even further by the fact that the Australian SBS isn't actually a full member, but the Scottish SBS will be. So I'm sure one of them would have to change their acronym or even their name, but who would it be? I don't have an answer to that. Either way, Scottish Broadcasting Service seems to be the current answer to a Scottish national broadcaster replacing the BBC, and indeed will be the broadcaster signing up for EBU membership in order to partake in Eurovision, among other things. In terms of the commentators, I've seen 2 suggestions so far. The first one is Ken Bruce, who is a Glasgow-born BBC Radio 2 broadcaster. He's got his own show on Radio 2, and he sometimes talks about Eurovision on the show and actually broadcasted a special edition of the show live from Malmö in 2013. And the second one is someone named Ricky Ross, who is a Dundee-born musician who presents Another Country with Rick Ross on BBC Radio Scotland. But, well, I'm not Scottish, so I don't know Scottish television people. And if you're from Scotland, just let me know in the comments. And talking about the time scale, depending on how long the EBU application takes, Scotland would most likely debut at Eurovision either in 2024, alongside Monaco returning, or 2025. You know, the fact that Monaco was planning to initially launch their new broadcaster this September and return in 2023 suggests that EBU accession probably doesn't take that long at all. A bit over a month ago, as of recording this, I put a poll up about whether people thought Scotland or Kosovo would enter Eurovision first, and Scotland won against Kosovo by 62 to 38%. Sound familiar? Wink wink. And I tend to agree. The RTK Director General says that they are aiming to apply for EBU membership at the end of the year, but don't we hear this kind of stuff every year? And also, the Kosovo flag is literally explicitly banned at Eurovision. And RTS, the Serbian broadcaster, will be a member of the EBU pretty much forevermore. So, and also as of recording this, I saw reports of shots being fired near the borders of Kosovo with Serbia, and air raid sirens were sounding and all that, so make of that what you will. The point is, I don't think Kosovo is doing Eurovision anytime soon, I'm afraid, for better or worse. And on the other hand, the accession process is much more straightforward for Scotland, since, at least in recent decades, Scotland hasn't really made much noise one way or the other in terms of international relations. Now let's move on to our favorite part, the songs. For the selection method, for the first few years, I think it's likely to just be internal, since for one, the UK doesn't have a continuous running national final either, and for new and old countries alike, it's just generally cheaper to internally select an act. And then maybe they can start having a national final a few years down the line when their finances start to stabilize. Maybe they could call it Eurosong, just like the Irish do. The language? Let's face it, it's most likely probably gonna be English. Scots would be nice, but people might get scared that it would get laughed off as improper English. A mixed English Gaelic song would sound really nice, I reckon, but the Irish have, throughout their history of winning 7 times, sent one song in Irish, which was 1972, and that song came 4th to last. To be fair, it is RTE doing this, while TG4, who do Junior Eurovision for Ireland, have sent Irish language entries every single year, so that's nice. But still, I don't think Scotland's gonna be sending that much Gaelic, and forget about Scots. In terms of instruments, please do manage your expectations. Bagpipes probably won't be that common because this is the 21st century, not 1700s. But nonetheless, an ethnic bagpipe song will be pretty cool once in a while, you know, kind of in the vein of Oniromu, Greece 2018. But again, just because Scotland is known for the bagpipes doesn't mean they're gonna stuff it into every single Eurovision entry. And the genre of songs, for the first few years, I'd say probably mostly ballads because it permits much simpler and hence cheaper staging. See Marpellish Deutsch and the Albanian entries from the 2010s. And they might transition into more poppy songs later on, which would require more intricate camera work and lighting and stuff. And in terms of artists doing Eurovision, again, I'm not Scottish, I don't know many Scottish names, but one that I definitely know is Amy MacDonald. I mean, she wanted to do Eurovision so bad that in 2021 she represented Scotland at the so-called Free Eurovision Song Contest in Cologne, which is basically this German knockoff of Eurovision, or basically what happens if you give a German broadcaster money and tell them to make a fan contest. She's living in Glasgow right now, is still active in music production, and is super pro-independence and anti-Brexit. She got 4th in the free Eurovision Song Contest, and I do think she can achieve something like that, if not better, in regular Eurovision. She was/is also massively popular across Europe, to the point where I was reading the Eurovision 2022 hashtag and I saw Germans and Italians refer to Rosalind as, quote, the Armenian Amy MacDonald. So if the hypothetical Scottish broadcaster asks Amy to do Eurovision, she would 100% jump on it. I don't doubt that one bit. For the results, could Scotland pull a Molotov and win on debut? Well, it's certainly possible, but I think it's pretty unlikely. And it would especially be economically challenging to host, again, in Glasgow, Edinburgh, Aberdeen, or wherever they want to host. Incidentally, if/when Scotland becomes independent, and if Glasgow hosts Eurovision 2023, they will become the first country to host Eurovision twice without ever winning the contest, though there is a country that has hosted Eurovision once and never won. Remember Zagreb 1990? Anyways, they could become the new Italy in the sense that they get good results very often but rarely win. They could also become the new Germany and flop most of the time, but when they do good, they do good. And someone also speculated that they could be like Norway in terms of results, while also putting in a lot of effort into the contest. Who knows? There's too many unknowns in this regard to tell. Also saw someone say that Scotland would win Eurovision 2025. Let's just see what happens, I guess. Though, in terms of block voting, they could get points from Australia, Ireland, France, maybe even the UK somehow, at least in the televote, and the Nordic countries, so this could be quite advantageous provided Scotland brings good songs, which I think they will. And a final little point on Scottish Eurofans. There's a few, but not as many as I'd expected. The overwhelming majority of British Eurofans are English, from England. The consensus I get from Scottish Eurofans is that they do generally support independence. After all, die-hard Twitter Eurofans tend to be more progressive, and I think almost everyone would agree that the SNP are more progressive than the Tories down south. I've seen a few hardcore unionist Eurofans, but they appear to be English, and I haven't come across a staunch unionist Eurofan that is from Scotland yet. So that was my review of Scotland at Eurovision. They have had a long-standing relationship with the Eurovision Song Contest, even though they've never participated by themselves before, and perhaps that latter part will change in just 2 years' time. Let me know what you think in the comments below, especially if you're Scottish, and apologies for the lack of uploads. It's for one Eurovision off-season, but also it's just really hot over here and it makes me demotivated to record stuff. I am working on the national finals video, I promise, just been writing a script for it. If it gets too long, I might not even record it at all and instead just put up my script on some sort of blog. This was also my first video for which I wrote a rigorous script to read from, so do let me know whether you think that worked out well. Regardless, like this video if you enjoy my commentary, subscribe to not miss my upcoming videos which may or may not include a national finals video, and I'll see you next time.